Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well this morning. I wanted to do this video really quick while it was on my mind and before I get distracted for the day. And I promise I'm going to try my best to do a more in-depth video on this over the next while. I can't give a time frame because I have a lot. Hi Kim. Hi Aaron. So I wanted to just kind of drop. I was speaking to a client and she was like, oh my god, light bulb moment. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it works. So just wanted to drop the bit of info in here to help you. Hi Jillian. Okay, so when we look at fat loss, most people don't understand how we lose fat unless you've kind of really worked with me or followed my posts. Most people don't understand that how we lose fat is, hi Jackie, through breathing. So we exhale our fat. A little bit we'll sweat off and we might pee off, but that's just a small bit. The majority of the fat loss that we do is by exhaling. So we exhale carbon, okay? So when we exhale carbon, that is us exhaling fat. So when we look at fat, fat is a long chain of carbons. So when you look at triglycerides, that is a 3-carbon molecule with a glycerol backbone, so a sugar backbone. So triglycerides or fat are predominantly made up of carbon. How we lose carbon is we exhale it. So now, when we put a demand on our body for extra energy and more breath and increased breathing, we're putting a demand on our body for more carbon. So where do we get that carbon if we're not consuming it? Because a carbohydrate is a carbon molecule with a hydrogen molecule attached to it. So the basic molecular structure of sugar is C6H12O6. So that is a longer carbon molecule with hydrogen attached to it. So you see where I'm going with this? So if we do something like exercise or we go for a walk, and I'm going to say in a fasted state, we're putting a demand on our body for more carbon or more energy. Now, where do we get that energy if we're in a fasted state? We will then have to go to our fat stores and we'll take that longer triglyceride or carbon molecule and we have to break that carbon molecule. When we break that carbon molecule, half of that carbon goes into our ATP or our Krebs cycle, so off to the mitochondria to be used for energy. And the other carbon molecule is just floating around. And what do we do with that carbon molecule? We exhale it. So we exhale carbon. Inhale oxygen, exhale carbon. So now, if you're constantly breaking those longer carbon chains, that maybe come from the back of your arms or your thighs or something, you're constantly making those carbon chains smaller. So that's where we see fat loss occur. We're breaking down the fat chains. Now, I have said if you're in a fasted state, this is how it works. But in general, this is how it works. If you are doing exercise, and let's say that your muscles are filled with glucose, glucose, again, is a carbon molecule. So we got that C6H12O6. So that is the molecular structure of sugar. If we have that in our muscles and we're doing a workout, we're breaking down that glycogen and we're burning off that sugar. Now, once all that sugar is gone out of our muscles and out of our bloodstream and out of our liver, what happens? We have to tap into our own carbon resources. So we got to tap into our fat cells. So, although you get optimized fat burning when doing exercise in a fasted state, you will still get fat burning in a fed carbohydrate state, depending on obviously the exercise, the amount of carbohydrates you have stored in your muscles. So if you have smaller muscles, you can't store as much carbon in there, whereas if you have bigger muscles, you obviously can. Unfortunately, our fat cells are always willing to take on carbon or excess sugar and fat. But it really was a light bulb moment for my clients, because we exhale carbon. Our fat is a carbon molecule. If we don't have fat on us, if we don't have that extra triglycerides or those longer fat molecules, then we will need to consume carbon to give us energy. So let's say someone that's very, very lean and very, very slim, they don't have fat stores, they don't have carbon. So unless they ingest the carbon themselves, they're going to be very weak, not going to have fun with their workouts, they're not going to push through, they're just going to be unhealthy. So they need to ingest carbon. And how do we do that? Through carbohydrate. That's that one carbon molecule with a hydrogen molecule attached to it. So in order for fat loss to occur, okay, and I did speak more about this in the macros podcast last week, in order for fat loss to occur, you need to be breaking down or exhaling more carbon than you're taking in. So that's where that whole kind of concept of calories in, calories out goes. But when you look at it as in a molecular form, in the carbon form, you want to be expending or getting out more carbon than you're taking in. And that's really what exercise does. It causes us to expend or use up or break more of those carbon molecules. We need to pant more. If you're panting more, you know that you're getting rid of more carbon. So you're like, that's a lot of carbon going out there. And also, as one of the byproducts of having this extra carbon in your body, it feeds one of our beneficial microbiota. They're called Akkermansias, and they feed off carbon. So the mucus that you produce when you're getting out of breath and you're exercising, and you know when you get that horrible burning feeling in your chest and your mouth goes all watery and gross and you're like, I fucking hate this. That mucus, that goes and feeds your Akkermansias, and they are your fat burning bacteria. So they increase fat burning at the same time. So you've got this whole cycle going on. Really, we should call it the carbon cycle, but that's how it works. So Stacy, when you go off now and you have your cinnamon roll, that's pretty just a load of carbons connected to water. And we both know, Stacy, what happens after refeed day. We don't always put on fat, but we bloat like a mofo because we've got all these carbons coming in and they're holding on to all this water, and that just sits in us at the same time. So when you think of it like that, it can kind of give you a better understanding of fat loss and how you can take advantage of it for exercise and fasting, and when to introduce carbs. So if you're breaking those carbon molecules, remember one is going into the Krebs cycle, the ATP cycle, and the other is being exhaled. And this is why exercise is very important for a lot of people. Some people, they just have an awesome metabolism and they have a really good microbiome that they can just focus really well on nutrition and they will lose weight awesome. But then there's a lot of us, myself included, that if I don't get that extra panting and the energy expenditure, so if I don't exercise, my weight loss, it becomes stagnant, or it just doesn't happen as nicely as I want it to happen. So breaking those carbon molecules, exhaling, and using up the other carbon for energy, this can show the importance of exercise in your fat loss protocol. But as well, remember I said, if you have those carbons or that glucose in your muscle, and let's say you're doing bicep curls, once you've depleted all the glucose out of that bicep from doing your bicep curls, now you're going to have to tap into your fat storage, so your own bigger carbon backbones, and start breaking them, so your fats. Now, if you wake up and you're fasting, you're already depleted throughout your blood and your muscles and your liver of glycogen. So your carbon that you're holding onto in all those areas is already lower. So that's where when you do fasted workout, even like a moderate pace walk, some dance aerobics, something in the morning that's going to get your heart rate up and get you breathing a bit heavier and expend energy or use energy, that is where you're going to see you're going to tap into your fat stores faster, because you'll burn off the carbon that's already in your blood and your muscles, and you won't have a lot in it because you've already been fasting, let's say 12 or 16 hours, and then you're going to start tapping into those carbon molecules on your thighs and your butt and the back of your arms and stuff like that. As the more you keep breaking those carbon molecules, the more that you're going to see the fat decrease. Now, you want to be really aware not to be doing anything that's just going to decrease fat and ignore the whole concept of maintaining or gaining muscle, because that's silly. So that's where your micronutrients come in. And as well, when we look at health concerns, that's your micronutrients, your dense nutrition, your fairy dust, your cert foods, your modbiotics, all that stuff comes in for the health and the maintenance of muscle. But if your nutrition and all is great and you understand this really simple concept, then you're not going to have a problem, unless you are not consistent. And that's where we have a problem. Okay, enjoy your Saturday. Please let me know if you found this helpful, and I will try to do a longer one in the future, a bit more in depth. Okay, bye-bye everyone.